everyone. Welcome to today's event. While we wait for others to join, chat down below and let us know what college you attend or have attended and where you're tuning in from. I'm Jade from the Way Up Events team. I went to Howard University and I am tuned in and based from Chicago. We're very excited to have everyone joining today for today's event, which is aimed at helping international students land internships and entry-level opportunities in the US. I'm going to go over some quick housekeeping. If you have any questions, please submit them in the Q&A section, not the chat box. All attendees are on mute and your cameras are off, so all communication will be done in the chat and the Q&A box. And to ensure this meets the highest level of ethical conduct, professionalism, and service, we ask for you to be kind and thoughtful in your interactions with our speakers and your fellow attendees. Thank you for your understanding for helping us make this a positive experience for all involved. So while we wait for more people to join, chat down below, introduce yourselves, network with your fellow community here on Way Up and on this event. That's one of my favorite things about having this event, or these are different webinars, is seeing all the students connect with each other. So to get things started today, once again, chat down below, introduce yourselves, and welcome to today's event. We'll be getting things started now. As I mentioned, I'm Jade. I'll be moderating this panel, and I'm joined today by 5 panelists from different career paths, different journeys, who have all walked similar paths that you all are currently walking or have in the past. And this is going to be a very insightful and informational session about landing internships and early career opportunities as an international student. So we're going to start with some introductions, starting with Abby Dami.
Thanks, Jade. Hey, everyone. I'm on the call. My name is Abadami. I'm a systems engineer at Dell. I'm also a founder of a scholarship platform called Schoolist App. So if you're a student looking for scholarships, check out www.schoolistapp.com. Yeah, nice to meet everyone.
Okay, Albert.
Hello, everyone. My name is Albert, and I am dialing from Europe because which is almost midnight here, and that's the only reason why I would jump on a call with international talents, because you guys rock. And I am a head of career services at one of the top business schools in Europe, and I chat a lot with, I would say, hundreds of employers and thousands of internationals to land top internships and graduate programs. And today I will be here to share some of the things that I wish someone would have told me when I was looking for a job.
Nice. Janavi.
So, hi everyone, I'm Janvi, and I recently graduated with a master's degree from Cornell, and I'm working as a product manager right now. I also create career development content on LinkedIn and Instagram. It's so nice to be here with all of the other panelists and looking forward to all of the questions.
And now Darsh, I see since you're unmuted.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Hey,
good.
folks. My name is Darsh. I'm a product manager at Microsoft. I actually grew up in the same town as Janvi, so it's really nice to see her. I grew up in India. I graduated from grad school program Georgia Tech at CI, and I saw some yellow jackets in the chat, so shout out to that, Atlanta. And I did my undergrad in computer science. Super excited. I've been working in Microsoft for 3.5 years, and I know that internationals, it's like a struggle and it takes a lot. So super big shout out to all of you who made it to this call and just taking that one step to figure out more info, try out more things. You guys are doing the right things. Excited for the call today.
I can go next. I'm the last, I think. Hi, everyone. I'm Soumya. I'm a senior product manager at Intuit. I'm currently driving strategy and product development for our MailChimp partnerships product. But as most of you, I have an international connection. I grew up in India. I went to school in the US. So have gone through the very painful but very rewarding journey of finding internships, full-time jobs, you name it. And I will say that being an international person in the job market in the US or any other country for that matter, it doesn't just end with finding your first job. the struggles on immigration and just immigration related woes continue throughout your career. So I'm happy to, provide any insights, share my experiences. But like I said, there's all of it is very rewarding in the end. There's so much we gain from going through these challenging experiences. So, you're all on the right track and looking forward to the interaction today.
All right, exciting. So once again, thank you for everyone. I see more people are joining as we get ready to head into the panel portion of this event. As a reminder, all attendees, your cameras are muted, your cameras are off, and you're muted. So if you have any questions, please submit them in the Q&A. We're going to have a designated Q&A session towards the end of the event, but for some questions may organically be answered in our conversation or entered into our conversations. And our panelists will also be hopping in that Q&A box and answering any questions you may have specifically for them. So for the flow of today's session, we have different categories of how we're going to address things, where the first theme is all about that search, such as where to find roles, things to know when you're on that job hunt. The next category is all about that application process, the interview process. One common question that I saw came in a lot was how to stand out in the application process. And then our final theme is going to be all about accepting that offer, exploring, what that may look like for you. So hopping into our very first question, and I'm going to open the floor to this for the panelists for this one is, before applying for roles in the US as an international applicant, what is needed in terms of documentation, etc.? And anyone can hop in here for this one.
I think somebody who's gone super recently, Janvi, you might be able to share some insights there.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. So sharing my experience, getting an internship was in the end for me. I had to literally fight with my school to get my work authorization, and it was a fun time. But yeah, before you even start applying to internships, I would say research about all the immigration things you need. So, for example, if you're in school, you can do your internship on CPT that you get. So if I didn't have the knowledge of like CPT, I would have gone through the OPT path and wasted a few months of my work authorization. So just be educated. There are a lot of resources available online to know what work authorizations do you have. So research all of that, and yeah, just be educated.
Yeah, what I'll add to that, I would say one thing that I feel like all international students should do is go to your international office in your school. Usually they would kind of provide a lot of information, mostly on like when you get a job, whether it's on campus or off campus. They would help you with like a CPT application, all of that. So I would say the first thing is definitely reach out to the international student office, and then also your resume. You as a applicant, you definitely need a good resume. Mostly being international, you want your resume to stand out. So yeah, I would say having a good resume is also something that is important when applying to jobs.
Thanks. And then Darsh, I saw you raised your hand.
Yeah, I was actually gonna add what Abhidhamini said, but one thing I want to add on top of it is you don't need to worry a lot about it. Like people who are trying to hire you want you. They have HR. They'll tell you what exactly they need. And as Abhidhamini said, you can just go to your international center in your school and potentially ask them to help you out. Because nobody really cares about these documents, to be honest, except the government. So the government just wants to make sure everything is legit. The company who's hiring you just want to be like make sure everything is legal. So don't stress out about that part. The part you should be working towards is getting an internship or getting a job.
I will jump on this as well, following your point, Darsh, because this is really what I see on the employer side of things. But especially, and I know you're also working with big employers, when it comes to more mid-size, smaller employers, sometimes they don't have that capacity in the HR team. And it's important to you don't need to have the answer immediately on the call with them. You can tell them that I will look for it. I have my university behind. I have an international office. I will go back to them and I will come back to you. So important here, proactivity. And I always say when you are now doing job search, it is time to also to dedicate a bit of part to understand what are the different visa options for you. Some people talk to immigration lawyers. I put in the chat the name of one of my favorite persons in LinkedIn sharing advice on visas, always, almost almost every day. But it's very, very important that you dedicate a percentage of time of your job search to understand what are your options with the visa.
And then also, Albert, if you could reshare the link to that page that you just mentioned, that person, that could be very helpful. Something I would like to note too for the audience, any resources, any links and such that is shared today, this will be shared in the chat as well as post-event. This event is also being recorded too. So after this event, you're able to rewatch and have access to all this information. And I'll also be sharing the panelists' LinkedIn profiles too throughout the session. So keep an eye out for that in the chat. So going into our next question, as we're getting to the topic of just like finding roles, where to find them, how can you identify companies and organizations that accept and hire entry-level applicants who require any form of sponsorship? And Albert, I actually would like to start with you for this question.
I think we could have the entire the entire hour on this. But I would say here the most important part is I always define it in a very simple way, which is with a quote. Many people in job search starts just searching, for example, internship or something very basic. And for example, if you're going to buy a shoe, you will not type in Google shoe. But when you go and find and try to search for a job, most of us do the mistake to just type internship or some very generic terms. So I would say the first tip is to remember to go and be very, very specific. The more specific you are in your searches, the better. So remember, don't just type in shoes, internships, graduate program. Try to go more specific. And here I would recommend, before we dive deep into all the different ways that there is something that really, really has helped a lot of international students, which is a methodology that I call job search research sprints, which means focusing, for example, 1 hour every day on a different way to search for opportunities. Because I do see that this brings a lot of burnout, and it's definitely not fun to just be on LinkedIn and scroll and see that they are not open to internationals. There's many different ways you can search for a specific opportunity for internationals. So I will tell you an example. For example, you can try to go in LinkedIn and search for people that is international talent that is doing internships in the US. And you sit down for 1 hour with your favorite drink. In Spain, we drink a lot cafecito, coffee. It can be anything that you want. But sit for 1 hour or two and just search people, students, for example, that got the internships in the US, international students. You can filter in LinkedIn, for example, for foreign universities. So I will put a guide also later on with more details on this, but this would be a way to do that. So, for example, focus on researching people that has jobs that you want, and then, for example, looking at companies that come, for example, if I come from India, I will sit down and I will research for 1 hour what are some fast-growing Indian companies expanding into the US. So it's about getting very clever on the way you search for opportunities. And I think there will be other questions, but I will leave room for other panelists to join on this, and then we can continue.
Yeah, I want to add to that. So I guess when I was in college, there were a couple of websites that really helped me know if the company I was, searching or looking at was hiring international. So number one is h1bvisajobs.com. There you would see companies that have filed for H1Bs in the past year or in the past month. So then you know that they do hire international. Another one is a My Visa Jobs, as well as H1B Grader. So those three are really good to search if your company sponsors like international students or not. I can put it maybe after, like send the links to them.
Yeah, I also just added one that you just shared too. So what I will do, I'm going to try my best to share any links that the panelist shares, but like as we mentioned and after this event, everyone will have access to that. But would anyone else like to add on to this question? Okay, so I guess hopping into the next one, I really do love the idea of just like being super specific on your job search. Like it's the biggest thing to just help because it's like there's so like you mentioned, you can type in one thing and it's going to give you so many options, but the more you narrow it down, you're going to get closer and closer to finding the things that you're looking for. So hopping into the next questions and just on the top of just like, websites to check out and everything. What are your top job hunting resources that you'd recommend to international students looking for internships and other entry-level opportunities in the US? So we can start here with Darsh for this question.
This is also one of those questions where you can spend an hour. I would highly suggest actually following few of the creators online who make their living out of creating content. Janvi is also a really good expert on this. She works at Onsulding, which is a company that prioritizes how to figure out people. Something unusual that I'll mention that I have used is actually Twitter, now known as X. A lot of people get bombarded with DMs on LinkedIn. I'm sure each of you would have experienced reaching out to somebody on LinkedIn and they just do not respond. You got to personalize how you approach people. Like if you're just blasting 100 people with the same message, nobody's going to respond to you. So, firstly, reach out with a very personalized note. And the reason I mentioned Twitter or X is the same people who are bombarded on LinkedIn don't even get one message on Twitter. So usually, if you get a message on Twitter or X, you're like, oh, well, somebody did message me. So people are more open, especially in the networking circles. People who network really well on Twitter or X are usually open to it. Something other than that I'll mention is searching on LinkedIn with keywords such as hiring, people in your alumni. So if you, let's say, graduated from Georgia Tech, look up on LinkedIn who is somebody that also graduated from Georgia Tech and potentially also graduated from the same undergrad as you. If there are multiple people, the chances are that if you guys were in the same undergrad, same grad school, they are much more open to talk to you. And honestly, everybody who's in the workforce is usually open to give back, but people are overwhelmed. So, figuring out strategies to reach out to these people in some context, not taking a lot of their time, and providing something of value is what I would suggest.
I
Yeah.
will just do a little 10-second input, which is something that from career services we see a lot because we recommend always to check the alumni of your university. But guess what? How many? There's hundreds of thousands of universities in the US. Why would you limit yourself to only look at alumni from your own university? Look at all the other universities, and when you send that message, one of the things that really, really helps is to keep it super simple and tell them one genuine compliment. And my star for international talent is to just tell the other person, seeing you in this position or in this role as an international like me, it makes me feel that it's possible. Just wanted to connect. Dot. These will get accepted no matter how many connections requests they get. But yes, let's continue with, as I know there were a lot of people jumping in.
Oh yeah, I wanted to jump in to say, so I mean, a couple of websites I've personally used include like Simplify, Handshake, and then even Way Up. Way Up, I'm not gonna lie, I've used it before when I was in college, so it is also good for finding jobs. But what worked for me, because I actually interned at 3 different companies while I was in college, and I think career fairs, like when you actually go to those career conferences, career fairs, and give them your resume in person, it's hard for them to say no, because I got most of my internships from the Society of Women Engineers conference or like the National Society of Black Engineers. So I think for me that really worked, and I would say that for me is the best way to go about finding jobs, like mostly internships or full time. But online also works as well.
And employers keep in the ATS. I was yesterday in Paris with a few top employers in Europe, and they keep in the ATS. If they meet you in a career fair or all these kind of events, if you submit a CV through that link in the applicant tracking system, which is where the system they organize the job search, they have a tab where they see where they have interacted with you. So if they have met you in a fair, you are already standing out when you're making the application without knowing. So this tip of Abidemi is super, super important.
Anyone else want to add before I hop into the next question? All right. So the next question, another really good one is, what are some green and red flags to keep watch of when on an internship hunt? Janavi.
Yeah, I was definitely gonna go on for this one because I have seen so many red flags during my internship search. I've been ghosted, I've been added to interviews, and no one has come to no one showed up for the interviews. So I feel like definitely red flags during an internship, especially like if you're an international student, is that first of all, always check the box if you need a sponsorship or not. And even though it's an internship, always mention during the call that you would be doing the internship with valid work authorization. That would either be CPT or OPT. And if in some of the calls I encountered, hey, I'll get back to the team and check in if you would accept that, and they would never get back. And sometimes the process would be delayed for months and I would have no response. So ghosting does happen. Um, but yeah, I would like definitely recommend to be honest about your work authorization. And yeah, if it's a maybe or a no at the start of the process, that maybe is always going to turn into a no. So just be very clear about that.
I think one thing I wanted to add from my time way back hunting for an internship was just being upfront about the fact that you're an international person, you are looking for a full-time conversion. I know sometimes people are like, don't mention it, but I personally have found it more valuable to share that, not in a super direct way to say I need a job, but rather put it in a way that you communicate your status, because again, as internationals, we don't have a lot of time as a privilege or liberty or whatever, once we graduate. So when you're looking out for internships, as you're recruiting, asking them like, hey, does this role have a future to convert to a full-time role? Are there other interns, if this is a regular program, are there other interns who are current full-time employees that you would be able to connect me with? And in my experience, depending on the responses of the recruiters, if they've been open to it and whatever, I think it shows their commitment to not only you know uh, carry out a successful completion of your internship, but that they have experience in converting people to full time, and they understand the nuances of you being an international student and how that transition from an intern to full time would work. And if they offer for you to speak with somebody who's in that existing role, that's the biggest green flag out there. If they seem hesitant or have a lack of clarity, I would say it's not so much a red flag, um, or like a poor reflection of them as an organization, but you being an international student and watching out for your own interest might be worth kind of deprioritizing that role compared to something else that has a higher chance of conversion, or there's a solid commitment there. So I would say like that's definitely something to think about as you go through the recruitment process.
And I feel like this is a good segue into our next question, which is, let me pull it up real quick. If applying for a role, how do you answer the question, will you now or in the future require sponsorship for your work at the company? And this is kind of a two-part question because I saw someone had mentioned, sometimes the answers are only really yes or no, but are there any effective strategies students can use to help communicate the nuances of their situation? Like if it's like, yes, I might, but like what is your recommendation there in terms of answering that question?
I can go first, and sorry, I just saw your hand go up. But I think in my experience, being honest is better than doing a maybe. I know it's tempting to be like, only if I get a job or an interview and later we'll figure out the, interviews, like immigration situation. I've regretted that whenever I've done that in the past, and I've been in the industry for a little over 7 years now. So I think it's always good to be upfront. So if it's a black and white yes or no question, answering yes is the way to go. If there is room for, usually there is room for explain or like add details, and that's where you can say, this is my current status, whether that's OPT or H1B or green card or whatever it is. So answering yes, providing that insight, most likely if they have a solid enough immigration system, they will understand those nuances, right? They're not gonna immediately exclude you from the talent pool if you answer yes, right? And if they do exclude you, then that's not the right fit for you as an international student anyway in the first place. So why even bother wasting your time and breath going through rounds of interviews or even getting hired only to later find out they don't have clarity or confidence on sponsorship? And so yeah, I think that's basically one of the things. The other thing I will say is, like, if there are options where there's multiple selections, then I think depending on your status, again, right? So I know the wording can be confusing sometimes, where it's like H1B or CPT or OPT or this or that, and it can be confusing. If you do have the option to reach out to the recruiter, just maybe like select the option that feels most close to what your status is. And if you don't see your version mentioned and you don't see any area to leave a note, then maybe reach out to the recruiter explaining your situation, that hey, I'm very interested in this role, I filled out, just so you know, this option, which is my current visa status, was not in the form, so I'm sharing that information with you. But I would say, like, at this point, just answer the most accurately as you can. And then, again, like I said, if they're sophisticated enough to understand the immigration nuances, then they'll reach out or select you. And it's never, to Darsha's point, they want to hire you, say, so very unlikely that the reason for them to reject you if they have a solid immigration system would ever be a immigration status. It'll be something else. But yeah, Darsh, go ahead.
Yeah. Firstly, plus 100 to whatever Soumya said. I think it's absolutely on point. And it brings me back to the point that I know immigration is a huge topic, especially for internationals. But you got to understand that there are many companies out here who hire internationals. And if you're facing issues with a company just because you're an international, as Soumya said, just move on. There are like huge nets you can cast out, and that's a more productive way to do it. Just be honest about it. One tip I would say, which has helped me in the past, is apply as soon as you can when a role opens up. I know, like, on the other side, it seems like there is some huge sophisticated system all these companies are using. Let me break you the truth, they're not. Like, if the role opens up and in the first 2 days 200 people apply, chances are they're not even going to go past those 200 applications for a role that is hiring one person or five people. So just apply early, be honest about your immigration status, and don't use your mental space to think about, hey, what I should do here. Because if the company is open to it, they'll just go forward if you're right fit. If not, then just move on. You'll get better ROI thinking about other opportunities versus worrying about immigration.
Right. Hopping into this next question is, how did you stand out during the application process? What do you think helped you stand out when there's hundreds of applicants for a role? And for this one, we can start with Abidemi.
Yeah, that's fine. I would say for me, just kind of have an experience. I'm not gonna lie, it helps. It does help, because when someone sees that you have some kind of experience, they're more likely to, I guess, want to give you the position. But if you don't have experience, that's fine as well. I think having some leadership position, because when I was in college, I was like a community chair for Society of Women Engineers. So when a recruiter sees leadership, they're like, yeah, like, we want that person. Or maybe scholarships. I also want a lot of scholarships. So things like that kind of makes me that overall person, not just, oh yes, she has experience, she has leadership, her GPA is good. It's like you want to become this well-rounded person that they want to hire you even if you don't have previous experience. And then yeah, I think that kind of really what made me stand out, because like I mentioned earlier, I went to a lot of career fairs. So when I introduce myself, I talk about my experience, I talk about my leadership, and people are just like, yeah, like, we want that person, So that's my tidbit.
Navi?
Yeah, I wanted to pitch in because I recently tried out a lot of strategies because I was looking for a job. And I feel what worked out for me is there are thousands of applicants who cold apply, who will just go to a website, submit their resume, and it ends there. I feel like how you can stand out is what you do after or before sending that application. So referrals are a good way to reach out to people, send, like ask them for referring you to the position. But I feel like to stand out even more, you can reach out to the hiring managers, you can cold email people, and you can start building your network even before you're looking for an internship or a job. The company that I'm working with right now, I knew their founders from like 3 to 4 years ago. And when I did not have an opportunity in hand, I reached out to them to see if they were looking to hire someone, and they were. And that's how I got my job. There was no application, there was no position to be that they broadcasted that they were hiring for. It was purely just by me reaching out and asking if they were looking for someone. So I feel there are a lot of opportunities that aren't even posted, which you can learn about from your network, but you need to start early and you need to start connecting with those people beforehand.
Mhm. And what advice would you give in terms of just, because I have two questions that can come from this, but I guess that first one, the one that I saw come in a lot was, how do you find the hiring manager? Like, how do you know that whoever you're going to reach out to is the hiring manager or the recruiter for that particular role or program?
That's a really good question. And the hack I use for this is, for example, if I am applying to like an associate product manager position, they would usually put in which division you'd be working with. So if it's like enterprises and sales or someone, I would look for a senior product manager or like an HR who's working in that specific team of that organization. And I would find out their email and cold email them. Finding out email, you can use hunter.io to find that email. It's not that difficult. But I feel like this is a hack I use well. Look for the teams, and you can also search for like people with the hiring symbol on LinkedIn with the company that you're applying to, and definitely reach out to those people either via LinkedIn or via an email.
I love that. I love that. Strategically thinking. And that makes so much sense. Like, if obviously for a particular team, let me see who's leading that team because they're most likely. Like, I like that mindset. That's a great tip. Anyone else would like to, like, how did you stand up during application process? We can take one more person to hear your story.
I can go for this one. I spent almost like 9 months during COVID doing job search. Actually, that's when me and Janvi ended up meeting. But I think something that's worked really well for me, and I also see everybody do this, please spend more time on your resume. What I said earlier about applying early, your resume should be something that you look for like 5 seconds, 7 seconds, and whoever views it should be like, God damn, I want this person. So it's very easy to do the generic stuff. It's very easy to have like follow a template, write the same words, but you got to understand this resume is being looked at for less than 10 seconds. And you need to do things here where if somebody looks at it, they instantly get this reaction that, hey, like this is amazing, this is awesome, like I want to mark this person. And there are ways to build up those experiences, as one of the panelists said earlier, like working on like side projects or working on experiences which you can add on. And that doesn't have to be something super fancy or an internship. It can also be a side project you are working on. Like if you are a programmer, you code something out. If you're a PM, you write a case study about something. Just try to use your time in an interesting way to put in your resume that calls you out. I think that's a big tip. And just a small tip to add on to it, when you're looking for these people on LinkedIn, try to find people who are not super active on LinkedIn. Sometimes this works because not many people are messaging them. Let's say if somebody is without a profile picture and works in the same org as that hiring guy, you can sort of figure out like, okay, that I'm going to message this person as well. Just cast a wider net. In my opinions, a lot of time recruiting is a numbers game.
And to add on to that tip too, because like I'm always on LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn, but like for those people who aren't active, if you do message them, after a couple days, LinkedIn will email them and be like, hey, someone messaged you. So it's not like your message will go into abyss. LinkedIn is gonna be like knocking on their door, opposed to like all the other people who they're getting 20 messages an hour. This person hasn't gotten a message in months. LinkedIn's gonna be like, wait, they should see this. So I like that idea of going after those inactive users.
I would say, Jade, also here in this something, because I see a lot of messages on referrals, and asking for a referral directly doesn't work. And especially in the US now, it's overused. So one of the things that if you already see the internship, you might be too late on the referral, but that is okay. But one of the things that really works very well is to first just send a compliment, as I said before, and then the second message, when you see the internship or position open, just be more genuine, and rather than write that scripted email, say, what a surprise, I was really looking for internships and I saw about your team and I've been thinking about it for months. But start the sentence like you would talk to a friend, like, what a surprise, I saw this in your team. Oh my God, I am so interested in marketing and your company. And I just wanted to let you know that I will definitely apply. So thank you so much and see you soon. Like, don't be too pushy, because in the US it's very overused right now, the referral path, like so much. And a question that really helps is it okay if I send you my profile or my CV so you can take a quick look, just super quick, 1 or 2 minutes, and let me know if I would be a good fit? And they might say, yes, let me pass it into the team, or they might not reply, but then you just continue and let them know, hey, I applied, thank you so much. That's it. Yeah. So take it step by step and be clever. Imagine you're the other person receiving that. Yeah.
I like that about putting yourself in their shoes. Because imagine you're sending the same scripted message to everyone. They probably received that scripted message in like 4 different versions. Like you want to send a message that stands out, but is also just very true to who you are. Because this person, whoever you're messaging, this could become a mentor. This could become a lifelong resource for you. So really put a lot of personalization there. So going into another great question that I had was, what are some common questions employers have about hiring international students, and how can they best address them during interviews? And I know we kind of touched on it in the beginning about being clear about what you're looking for and what your needs are, but what are some common questions that may be asked?
I can share some that either I've asked or have been asked. So one is something that we addressed earlier, which is what's your current status? That'll always come up. So knowing exactly what your status is important. Sometimes the recruiters on the other side, they fully understand what that status means. So if you say you're on an OPT, they'll know. And sometimes they'll ask and they'll be like, what does that actually mean? So even though it's unfair that we have to explain all the legalities, just be mentally prepared to have like a really dumbed down fifth grader version of what that immigration status means, specifically from a perspective of job, right? So, hey, this is H1B, for example, is my current status. This means that for any employer, as long as they sponsor my transfer or whatever, I should be able to switch jobs. And I'm speaking switching jobs because that's my most latest context. But for instance, it could be, hey, I need you to sponsor my H1B. It's essentially a lottery that goes through government decides who gets it. Once it gets approved, I will have the ability to stay here for 6 years, with 3 years being the extension point. So like just be able to not only share what your status is, but understand that sometimes recruiters and hiring managers don't have the legal context of what that essentially means. The other thing they often ask is, how frequently can you begin? And that is a very important question, because sometimes roles are more open ended, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm hiring interns for a specific timeline and I'm hiring 15 of them that begin at the same time. They're not going to make any leeway for your specific individual case if your application is stuck with the government or something like that, versus if they're hiring for a very specific team or need and niche, and you're the person who fits their profile to the T. And if it means they have to wait for you for a month, they will wait. If it means they have to wait for you for 3 months, they will wait, because hiring and recruiting itself takes a lot of time, right? So if they've found the right candidate and you say, hey, I want this H1 transfer and it's going to take a month and that's when I can begin, they'll be fine with that. But then if it's something like all of our program interns are beginning July 4th, and the way your recruitment timelines like it's going on, and you were in the first week of July, there's no way you'll have the right authorization, right? So just knowing what your timelines are, and again being very upfront about not only your status but timeline, will prevent both of your energies and time, in terms of like not wasting things. So that's another thing that they ask for. The only other thing usually they ask for is like, do you have the right permission or status to relocate? Because again, a lot of these times immigration statuses are tied to a locale. So again, just having um, that knowledge about, all right, technically my current H1B is only limited for this particular radius. So like for me, it's New York and this particular office, but should I to relocate to Cali for another job, my new employer's address is what would be my authorized work location, and I'm open to relocating and working, right, as long as government approves the application. So just knowing those things, so status, timelines, and location, I think those are usually the questions they ask. The only other thing, sorry, they ask is how much time you have left on your status. So let's say you're in your fifth year of H1B, right? And again, I'm using H1B as a reference, and you only get technically 6 years in that status. You're sort of a risk for them, right? Because what if their processing for a perm or green card doesn't come on time? The government will kick you out, and there's nothing they could potentially do about it. And so versus if you had 3 years on your H1B, they would have enough time to start a green card process, from their perspective. Similarly for CPT, OPT, like how much time do you actually have left in your calendar? Like that just gives them an idea of how soon they need to begin with the H1B or green card process. So again, and I would repeat myself and and sounded like a broken record here, but being upfront about that is way better than like trying to beat around the bush, right? So if you are for some reason in the fifth year, just be upfront about it, because you don't want them to not sponsor or support you. So if they think you're the right person, they will take that risk, whatever risk is in this context. And if they're not, then why would you join them any in the first place? Because they're not going to support you through that process. So yeah, knowing your status, time, location, and how much time you've left on the clock. So like really getting familiar with all the USCIS nuances and reading up on stuff like that.
Mhm. And then on the topic of time, because this is a perfect segue for our question that came in, considering that immigration paperwork takes time, how soon should students begin looking for their internships? I know we mentioned it's like staying on track of time and keeping timelines, like, and anyone can hop in for this one. Like how early, when is too late, like things like that.
I can go. I would say sophomore year is a good time to start, because freshman year, I mean, you do get some companies that are like that want, because there are a lot of freshmen like leadership programs that are out there, or like coding programs. So a lot of companies like to start like hiring proper internships like for sophomores, in my opinion. So I would say sophomore year is a good time to start. Junior year is also good. I won't say senior year is late, but like it would be great to have had internships like sophomore and junior year. So yeah.
Mhm. And Darsh, I know you raised your hand.
Yeah, I wanted to say it also depends on like which role are you applying for. I can give example of Microsoft because I work here, but typically Microsoft hires for a lot of engineering roles early in the year. So they'll open up applications in July or early August for internship for next year. So looking at one cyclic year, as soon as you see the role applying, I know I'm sounding like a broken record, it is usually a good time to apply. Now, if you think of design roles, for example, like something like UX design, typically those roles won't open up for internship in summer until January of that year, because the organizations first try to hire like the maximum number of internships available, which are usually in a company like big tech, Microsoft, Meta, all these companies, is early on in July, August, September, and then they open design roles. So I would say whichever role you're interested in, do the research. And typically, it's good to do this research if you're undergrad in like your freshman and sophomore year, just so that you're aware of timelines. My personal example is when I was looking for internship in 2018, I thought, okay, everybody is going to apply in January, February because I was in a design program and that's what everyone told me. But I wanted to go for PM internships, which typically open in July and August. So I lost out on my internship chance because I wasn't aware of the timelines. So based on your role, do your research, especially for new grad programs. If it's not new grad, then usually any role that's open in the market is up for game.
Mhm. Okay. All right, so hopping into our next set of questions before we open the floor up to Q&A. For earlier career applicants who receive offers in a new country and have to move, what advice do you have about adjusting to their new lives in this new environment? And anyone can hop in here.
I think I can go. In terms of like getting an entry level job in a new country, getting as much experience as you can get, maybe through internships or like, doing projects or whatever in that specific country that you're looking for a job, that becomes incredibly valuable when you're looking for an entry level job. And in terms of adjusting to the new environment, I think there's no tips, but just and like I think a statement that I heard that it always gets better with time. You learn a lot when you move away from your home, and it just helps you grow. So just give it time. There will be ups and downs, but yeah, just go through with it and when no like in such a short span of time you'll start learning so much and you'll automatically get adjusted to the new environment.
Just to add to what Janvi said, is I think one thing that I've learned in my life or career is that, like, be prepared to be completely shaken up. And I mean that in the best way, like not negatively, but all your preconceived notions or all your biases about whether a country or a career or a job, right? Like, as long as you know that everything that you believed can be questioned, you'll be fine. Because, like Janvi said, have a learning and growth mindset. What that really means, everybody says have a growth mindset. And it occurred to me that what that really means is that you have a very strong belief about something, and then you go through an experience and it changes things. And so the more you're prepared for that beforehand, so like let's say I'm going to UK for my internship and I have a certain preconceived notion about how my life or career there is going to be. um, I'm sorry to say that might just be completely different from, or may if not completely different, then at least like, at least 50% different from what you're taught. And so just like preparing yourself mentally, because to Janvi's point, every experience is going to add on to you as like a feather in your cap, right? And every little lifestyle change is going to teach you something about yourself or the career. And honestly, if you end up having the worst experience, it's also a learning experience, because that helps you understand who you don't want to be or what you don't want to do. So always looking at any sort of challenging or negative experience as a way of filtering things out, which is so important, especially in your early on in your career, in your 20s. Like, just having that mindset of what am I going to filter, what am I going to do, rather than like, this is what I want. I think that mindset helped me a lot. Like, I don't really know who I am, but I know for certain who I'm not, right? And that helping that even from a career perspective, right? Like when you're in the job, you maybe enjoy certain parts of the role. So really tapping into, what do I not like? What do I not want to do in the next role, right? Maybe I don't enjoy talking to salespeople. I'm just using that as an example. I do enjoy speaking to salespeople, but just as an example, what do I not enjoy? Do I not enjoy writing code, even though I have a technical background? Just knowing those things and using the opportunity to be in that environment is the best way to prepare yourself. Rather, like, everything about your belief system might be like turned upside down. So if you go with that mindset, everything ends up being like a really cool experience or a fond memory or a lesson to look back at. You know.
Love that. Anyone else would like to answer that one? Okay, so going into another great question that I saw come in a few times is, for students who may not have had much professional work experience, what are some things or sample personal projects that they can work on to include in their resume and portfolios, and the best way to include that on your resume? So I know if you mentioned adding personal projects or just like little side projects, what are some examples of that, and how would you recommend that they showcase that on their resumes?
Yeah, I can jump in. Like for example, like coding projects. There are a lot of coding programs that are out there from like my siblings right now are in Code Path. There's like Code Plessy Code. There's like so many that really help you build your portfolio as a engineer, as a software engineer. So I would definitely recommend that. And then for UX design, there's so many UX design organizations out there. I know there's General Assembly. There's a bunch that really help you build your UX design portfolio. So there's a lot of, if you guys want to message me personally, I could send you some as well. But there's a lot of programs out there to help build portfolio, mostly like for sophomores, juniors, freshman year, that can really help you build up your resume. Also, like on-campus jobs. Like I think having on-campus jobs also shows that you're someone that like you're a hard worker, and people like to see that. So I would say, yeah. And then lastly, there's also diversity programs. So when I was in college, I joined like a bunch of diversity programs. Like there's this um, Dow Diamond Symposium. There's like BP. Like every company actually has like a diversity/leadership program. So maybe search online like company X diversity program or company X, company Y leadership program, and then apply to them. And they're really good on your resume as well. And they can also be an in into a company. You know, like sometimes maybe you can't get into the door, but when you go through that program, you'll get like firsthand interview, and then you're able to get the job easier than just applying online. So that's something you should definitely look into.
Darsh?
Sorry, I was on mute. I have a take on this that kind of relates to your personal life. Just for a second, try to think of one of your favorite shows or favorite movies. Like, what was really the reason why you liked it? And often the answer is the storytelling that is used in that show. And the reason I'm trying to tell you this is when you are somebody who's considered as a candidate in the market, you will observe that not, I wouldn't say one or two times, handful of times or majority of the times, the person who has a better story to tell is the person who gets the interview. And the interview is the test where you are hired for. So try to break this down into multiple things. One part is the interview, but even before getting the interview, you have to tell your story and be honest about like why you are doing a certain role. For instance, I wanted to be a product manager. I was like, dude, I cannot find resources for product managers. I met few people online and I was like, you know what, I'll create a community of product managers. And in my actual interview, my majority of interview was about that. It's an organization called Product Builds, and they were like, why did you create this? I was like, oh, I had a problem about product management resources. So try to even consider creating your own things. Like as a designer, you can be using Spotify every day and be like, dude, I hate this design that Spotify has, or I hate this design Zoom has. Just recreate that design, learn how to use Figma online, and just make your own thing. Create an article out of it, create a reel out of it, and put the links in your resume and be like, hey, like I did this XYZ thing. And a lot of the storytelling is smart writing. Like let's say you created your own design, you can send a survey to like 20 of your friends, ask them to send it to your friends with your designs in it and ask for feedback. Like learn survey design, how to design a good survey, and ask for feedback. Let's say 60 people respond, 40 people like it, you can write in your resume 60% of the people who use this like gave an approval rating of 9 out of 10 or whatever. But my meta point here that I really want you guys to ingrain is a lot of your experience building is storytelling. Like if you tell a good story, that's what all these recruiters and hiring managers look for. Even if you might be a better candidate for the role, but you can't sell yourself, then you're not even going to get considered for the interview. Once you sell yourself, you will get to the interview and then prepare for that interview. That interview, once you get it, from first round to last round, that's the only criteria they're going to look at while making a decision whether they want to hire you or not. So break those two down, focus on storytelling for the first part, and focus on how to crack an interview for the second part.
Mm-hmm. I love that idea of storytelling being a big factor. And because honestly, your resume is supposed to be a conversation starter. So, as advice that was shared earlier, like before you submit that resume, like read it. Like knowing that recruiters take 6 to 7 seconds to read a resume, read your resume and be honest with yourself. Like, does your resume tell a story? Would you see this resume and be like, oh, I want to hire this person? Like
Yeah.
removing biases, like be very honest with yourself, because the reality is a lot of people who are applying for roles, they're qualified or they have similar qualifications. What's going to make you stand out? What's your story? You could be like Darsh, where you created product birds. I believe that's what you said it was called, or
Yeah.
you create a specific project or something like that. Like incorporate that into your resume and don't be like every other applicant. Stand out.
Yeah.
Something that makes you stand out. And
Something I want to add to that is you can also add your own personality in the sense I saw somebody's message, they customize by the theme of it. Like you can customize a Spotify themed resume if you're applying to Spotify. Another thing I've also shared this with Janvi is like mention your hobbies. Like use one line in your resume at the end. Just say that, oh, I play drums, I like chess, things like that. You never know, somebody reading your resume would be, wow, that's a very unique hobby. Like this person could be interesting. You never know. Like things behind the scenes are not as sophisticated as you think they are. A lot of it is on luck.
And I will build onto that because the interest part is like amazing. So if you don't have experience, I've seen a lot of CVs, and I have to tell you, like, you're not alone. I mean, I do CV reviews almost every day as a head of careers, and I have to say the CVs are really not good. But I was speaking to employers, and the biggest companies do not spend also 7 or 8 or 9 seconds. They spend 3 seconds actually. And and the others, they spend 10 minutes or 1 hour in your resume. So the idea is with that document, make sure you have a mini cover letter on top, and make sure you have a headline targeting the job that you're applying to. And then the intersection, guys, is not also about experience, but it's about right now in the world, there is a very amazing opportunity, which is communities. For example, if you're interested in product management, there is, I'm sure, a ton of communities in product management. So you can put the communities that you are part of, even if you just join. But the idea is that try to find ways to immerse yourself into the field and volunteer with, for example, nonprofits in your area or next to the university. Use 1 month to say, hey, I'll help you with this marketing project. I really want to do that 1 hour a week or 1 or 2 hours a week. That is totally fine. If you do that 3 times during 1 year of your university, that is 3 different experiences plus your degree. That is already a whole resume, and it's not going to be like, it's going to be quite good, So really make sure that you don't fit too much in this box of my CV needs to be this. Be a bit open-minded, but and showcase interest. That is super, super important.
I love that. So this was really great. And so we're hopping into Q&A now. But before we do that, I saw a bunch of questions from students asking for you all to share those websites that you listed that were great places to find jobs. I know one was the H1B visajobs.com. Any other websites or resources that you shared? They're asking for you all to share that. So I'll have the panelists send that in the chat. But going into the Q&A, we have a lot of questions. We have over 100 and something questions, but one that came in that I thought was very interesting. Let me try and find it. Okay. In spite of best efforts, if someone is not able to find a job, what are some backup solutions? Someone once told me to try self-employment. How realistic is that as an international student? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I can say something. So there's this person I follow on LinkedIn. It's Unshackled. I think they're a good resource. Like they're always talking about other options. I know there's O1 is an option. So if you're a founder or if you founded something, you can apply for a visa that I think it gives you 3 years. There's EB2 NIW, which is kind of like a visa that you don't need to go through your employer to get a green card. You can self-apply for that. So there's like there's EB2 NIW, there's EB1A, which is for extraordinary ability. So those are like the 3 major ones that I know of, other than like if you don't have a job, So, but definitely follow Unshackled on LinkedIn. They're always sharing tips for international students to be able to self-sponsor themselves. So that is a good resource for sure.
Nice. Janabi?
Yeah, I wanted to share this because I recently graduated and I went through the process, and I've seen my friends do this too. So when you graduate, you have 90 days to find a job as an international student, and those 90 days are really important. Now, you don't need to find something that's paid, or it doesn't have to be a full-time job. It just has to be a job from a company that has an EIN, employer identification number. So my goal when I did not have a job 2 months before I was graduating was to find any kind of employment. It could either be like volunteering, unpaid employment, an internship, anything. So widen your net when you're closer to graduation and save those 90 days that you have. The moment your employment date starts on your EAD, make sure you have any kind of offer that saves that 90 days for you. And there are a lot of resources. A lot of content creators also share some volunteering opportunities that some of my friends have also used to stop their 90 days. So follow them and look for the companies that they share.
Nice. Okay, going into another question I saw came in. Let me see. How important was networking in securing your internship or entry-level role? And do you have any tips for effective networking?
Yeah, I think we already heard a really good example from Janvi about how she secured her current role. I want to give my example since I mentioned this earlier about product bits. We started the community in summer 2020, and as part of it, I think a really good advantage I had was we would often reach out to speakers like this panel and be like, hey, could you come and talk to people? And because we would have that rapport with them, that, hey, they're speaker, they came and talked to like a bunch of product buds, I have a personal relationship with them. So now when a role opens up in their company and I reach out to them, they're like, oh, I did an event with you guys. You're awesome. Like, let me just refer you. That is one advantage I got. The other thing I want to say, I used to post nonstop on LinkedIn and my socials about it because I was trying to grow my own personal branding. And the Microsoft recruiter who got me into Microsoft, she was an alumni from my program. So she was like, oh, this guy's from Georgia Tech. Like, she commented on one of my posts and I immediately reached out that, hey, I saw you commented on my post. I'm a big fan of you. I want to meet up. Let's talk. We ended up setting up a call for 20 minutes, ended up talking for 1 hour. She was like, oh, would you want to interview with Microsoft? I was going to ask her, but she asked me before. So I was like, yeah, definitely. And because she sort of knew me, she waived off all the initial rounds for me. So I directly ended up going to final rounds. I'm giving this example to tell you that you are not supposed to start networking when the role comes out. You are supposed to network before the role comes out, because once the role comes out you've already like behind on the train. Yes, you can do a lot of things, but uh, if you're planning to recruit this season, July, August, start networking now. Don't wait for the role to open up and then start networking. You have like 5 people on the call here, you can reach out, try to network, and you already have an in for those companies.
Yeah, I wanted to add in, and this is a lot of things that I've learned from Darsh and Soumya both because they're my mentors and they've honestly taught me a lot to like find jobs and, just survive in this country. But yeah, networking is really crucial. The internship that I found too was purely through networking. I skipped the first rounds too in that, and I was pushed to the final rounds where I had to only present a case study. But that was because the person I connected with on LinkedIn, she was the hiring manager for that role. So I feel like networking can open so many doors if you do it correctly. And sure, the cold applications do help too. They might get reviewed, but there are higher chances of you getting that job or internship when you try to network and reach out to people. So yeah, my number one advice would be that if you see a role that you match very closely with and you want to get that role, even though you submit an application, make sure you reach out to relevant people and make sure that you stand out.
I will just add something to this and maybe playing devil's advocate a little bit. All of my career, whether it's internships or full times, none of them have been through networking. They have simply been apply, go through the interviews, do well, right? And so, for all the introverts who might be shivering by the thought of just doing extreme networking, just wanted to share that, right? Like, we're not saying that the traditional channels of recruitment are not effective. They are. And let's be real, you're not going to be able to speak to hundreds of people in that intimate way that Darsh and Janvi are describing. That being said, I will 100% plus one what Darsh and Janvi are encouraging you all to do, which is play the long term game. And the best way to describe, or maybe in another alternative way to think about this is, um, drawing parallels to investing. You don't invest thinking that tomorrow you're going to get this huge return, right? Usually you do long term investing for long term gains, and something good will come off of it. You just don't really know exactly the date or time unless you're day trading. That's a whole different story. But all that to say, networking, what I've recognized is not just about the job, but sometimes you don't even know that there are certain opportunities out there that are valid for you just because they are so black boxed from you, right? You don't really know what's out there in the world, and speaking to actual real humans, you feel like, oh, this isn't as complicated, and they help demystify certain things for you. They help you connect with people. And again, Janvi is a great example of that. She's spoken to LinkedIn leadership and whoever else. So, like, access and just the awareness of certain places, opportunities, or people, that's what really networking creates for you. And getting a job is one part of that thing that I'm describing, right? And it could be that the stars align in a way that at the same time that you're looking for a job, someone you have networked with over the course of time is also hiring, and so that happens. All that to say, like, don't just put all your eggs in a basket and like randomly started talking to people and spend hours chatting with them. Like, that should be a long term, thoughtful, intentional game, setting personal goals for yourself. Like, I'm going to dedicate 1 hour every 2 weeks or every month. Start with that, right? Where I'm going to genuinely look into people I admire or aspire to be and send them, or outreach communications and things like that, and then build that relationship. And when the time's right, again, using the investing analogy, when the market's super up, that's when you withdraw and get those gains. So that's kind of like the best way to understand networking versus the recruitment channels. The recruitment channels absolutely work. I hate to say this, but it's not going into like some oblivion that nobody looks at. People do look at resumes. I do recruitment at my team, and we look at resumes, we talk to candidates that nobody has any connections with. At the end of the day, we're looking for the person who's best for the job, not my best friend, right? So just because you're really great at talking to me, I'm not going to give you the job. But if you have the skill and you have a relationship with me, that's when you get the edge. So it's all about complementing your main job search, which is through the traditional recruitment cycle, with networking. It's not meant to be a replacement. So that's just my POV. Albert, sorry, your hand's been up for a while.
No, no, no. It's because I deeply resonate with your view on this. So I want to bring something clear on onto adding up onto that note, which is I would say right now use the time at university and the last years to experiment, because networking you're able to access better opportunities. Doesn't mean it's the only route, and the first job doesn't need to be getting through a referral and through networking, but this can change definitely your entire life. And you don't need to create a whole community. You don't need to be a speaker. You don't need to build a personal brand. I've been networking for 3 years, and I've only started building my personal brand in the last 6 months. But before that, I was already sending messages to even like my favorite book authors. I would send them a selfie and send them a picture. Oh, did it get accepted or not? And focus on that small wins on building relationships, which is that yes to that connection request. So start taking little challenges, as you said, which is how can I get my connection accepted? How can I get my connection accepted and with a super positive reaction from the other person? So you will find different ways that work with your voice. I put a guide on all of these, my methodology in the chat a few comments before. But this is super, super important. And I would say from the recruitment side of things, we all say networking, and networking is all about adding value. And I would say if you are a good potential candidate for a team, don't hesitate to reach out. And the reason why is because you are doing their job easier. They are trying to find a candidate. So this is also adding value. And it's important, for example, rather than maybe messaging all the entire hiring team once the vacancy is out, maybe focus on some high ROI actions. My personal tip would be to start with follow-up note with the recruiter. Why? Because they have you in the ATS. And I've been speaking with hundreds of HR directors and talent acquisition teams on this. And I show to all my students the ATS behind the scenes, live in the screen. And then we put different messages to the recruiter. And we ask the recruiter, if you receive this message, what would you do? And the recruiter, if they receive a message with good interest, just interest and letting them know that they have applied and if they need something else, at least they would go to the ATS and check who the person is. And guess what? Maybe you're in the ATS for 5 days and they mark the candidates usually in 2 colors. Let's say green and gray. If you're marked in green, you're passing the next stage. If you're marked in gray, you stay there for a few days and then you get off. What happens if you're marked in gray and applications keep coming in? You go down, which means they only look your CV for 6 seconds. What happens if you send that follow-up note to the recruiter? It's like applying 2 times. They will look again at your profile. That's your goal, that they look again at your profile, that you do such an interesting message that they say, oh, let me check if I really pass that person or not into the next stage. And then they go back to the applicant tracking system and they say, oh my God, he's in gray. Let me check his CV again. Oh, green. Oh, no, gray. Okay, cool. But you are applying double. So that's gaining double of attraction. And if you're really good at the role or you think are a good fit, why not do that? Don't try to become friend of the hiring manager when the vacancy is out, because that doesn't work. Friendships take up to 60 to 200 hours. So don't forget that. Yeah. But in the long term, it's super important to play and experiment as you are in university. As Darsh say also, you can invite them to speak at your own events, but you can also invite them to speak to your friends or to your class. There's many different ways, but I know we're short on time, so let's move to the next question. But yes, I hope this helps a little bit.
Yes, we definitely have covered a lot of topics. And as shared before, this recording will be shared with everyone. And with this recording, you'll have access to the chat. So all the links, all the resources that were shared, you'll be able to see it. And if you haven't already, please check the chats. I've shared our panelists, their LinkedIn profiles. Some have other resources that they've curated, such as Abidemi's website for scholarships and Janabi's Instagram, where she's sharing her story and more resources. So definitely grab all those links, including links about where to find jobs. They're in the chat right now. So definitely grab them. So 2 quick questions before we wrap things up. I'm getting a lot of questions about just like creating a standout resume. And I know for you, Albert, you mentioned that you've looked through a lot of great resumes and then some that may have not been great. So perhaps maybe you can share like one common theme that you noticed around those resumes that were really great and one common theme around the resumes that weren't really great.
Yeah. So I'll be very brief on this. I would say for resumes, what matters is that whatever you're handing in, it tells the employer that you can do the job. I've been showing to more than 2,500 people on a stage. I'm on my knees and I share a picture of a baby crying. When a company is hiring, they need someone and they need someone that can do the job. So can you actually do the job and very well? That's what they care about. So basically, if you're able to put your name and then the target role that you're applying, for example, marketing, junior marketing, and then a paragraph on how you're related to the role, like the mini cover letter, because the other cover letter, they do not read it. And now they know it's with ChatGPT, so even less. And then your education and good experiences and skills. That is enough. You just need that mini cover letter. One of my tips would be, before applying to a role, take the time to understand what is the ideal candidate for them. Half a page. I would always say, and research the job description, but not just that, research people and research the company. And then try to imagine, okay, what is the ideal candidate for this marketing internship? And you create the ideal candidate. And then you say, okay, how can I portray it in my CV? And it's not about, I disagree a bit with the opinion of creating a whole CV based on Spotify, because that's too time consuming and they don't care. Basically, you just have to make sure it shows that you can do the job. So once you have the ideal candidate profile, make it sure that you make the links enough in your CV as well as during your interview. Yeah, with the stories and experiences. And bad common practices is completely the opposite. When I do see an hyper personalization that is really not aligned to the ideal candidate that I'm looking for as a company. And companies are like, this CV is great, but nothing is tailored to exactly what we're looking at. And that is definitely a big red flag and mistake that I see, which is this super personalization that then it doesn't really match with the ideal candidate that they actually have in mind. Because, for example, in the job board, not everything is so important. Like the first bullet points are more important than the second ones. You have to understand all of these things. So my tip here will be really put the glasses on as if you were in the hiring team. What kind of person do we want to hire and we will be confident to bring on our team? So that would be my tip. And focus on the top part of the resume with a 3-4 line cover letter.
Yes, I love that idea. Put your eyes in the shoes of the recruiter, and like knowing that recruiters are looking at resumes like probably 3 to 7 seconds, like having that important information at the top. So going into our last question for everyone, if there's one piece of advice you can leave with students today about their early careers, what would it be?
Jade, I was going to ask you, is it okay if I maybe quickly share my screen? I don't know if it will work. I just wanted to show people like a resume sample. Maybe that will be my tip for you guys.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think you should be able to.
Let's see. Okay.
So you can see a resume example.
And then I'm also going to share, I don't know if there's like a post email. I'll share with you guys as well. But can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a sample I saw floating around LinkedIn from this guy called Jonathan Javier. I think he's like the founder of this platform called One Salting. But like he kind of highlighted like, so if you scroll up, here is kind of like an agenda of like what each color means. So like red, action verbs. So he kind of highlights that always start with like an action verb of like your past experience. And then I think for orange is like hard skills, like we put specific hard skills. So based on like from my experience of looking at thousands of resumes and always kind of analyzing of, because it takes me like 3 minutes to look at a resume and be like, yeah, this is who I want to bring on board or not. So I always like to see numbers. I always tell people like always show like you've made an impact in some way. Don't just write, oh, I led a team. Okay, you led a team to do what? You know, what percentage of growth did you bring to the company? So people like to see those numbers. And then if you have some leadership experience, add that as well. I always tell like freshmen, sophomore, juniors to get as much leadership experience as you can, because I mean, your GPA is good, but like, why should I hire you? Like, is it just your GPA? Like, what else do you have that's going to make you stand out? You know, and then maybe add some skills. I hardly look at the skills, but maybe if the skills benefits the job, like let's say you're applying for an oil and gas job and you have skills in some oil and gas skills, and maybe put that there because that would be great for them to see. But overall, I just think when you're making a resume, show impact. I want to know why I need to hire you. Have you led a team and you've raised over $100 million? You know, what have you done that's going to make me want to hire you and make you stand out from the rest of the applications I'm reading? Remember, like it takes 2 minutes for me to know, or for a recruiter to know if they want to pass you on to the next stage. So make yourself stand out. But yeah, that's my tip. Let me stop sharing.
Yes, this was very helpful. And for everyone asking to see it, we've shared it in the chat below. Yes.
That's funny because whatever panel I do, I cannot get away from this guy, Jonathan. He's my friend and also Janvi's boss. So it's funny.
It's very full circle. Yeah, Janvi works at One Salting. So like when I saw you pull it up, I was like,
Yeah, I had the biggest smile on my face and I was taking a screenshot to share it with John later on that I was at this event and you were mentioned. But yeah, I honestly love the work that Consulting does, and that was very aligned with my mission too. They're really nice people. I now work there, and I build products for Consulting now. So yeah, I'm so glad that it's helping people. If you need any more free resources, Consulting shares a lot of them. I've shared the link in the comments too, so do check it out.
Yeah, I think one tip I'd like to share, it's you can consider it more as a philosophical tip. It's not educational, but something that I do before my interviews, or I used to do when I was interviewing, is try to shift the mindset from, hey, am I qualified enough for this? How do I prove to this people that, oh, I'm like a good hire? Or whenever you're building your resume, how do I prove that I'm like the person right for the job? Instead, try to do a mind shift that you are like a collection of all your experiences, all your learnings, and think of it in a way that if you have an interview, this particular company is hiring you for 2 hours to use you as a consultant. They are gonna ask you questions, they're gonna give you problems to solve, and just try to think of it from a perspective which I know is hard, but comes from practice that, okay, like this is not an interview, I'm getting hired. Let me just think and use my skills that I actually already know. And that usually takes a lot of the anxiety away for me. Like I stop thinking that, oh, am I saying the right things? Am I showing them the right things? And becomes more about like the problem itself. And if you've already done the work to solve that by your skills, a lot of like anxiety goes away, you perform much better. And I'm sure in exams also you must have felt like when you have a question you are not able to solve in the exam, you go home, try to solve it, and you're like, wait, I'm able to do this. So just try to think of that way, and resume is like your way of showing like what skills you have. So focus on storytelling and focus on as if you were hired by a company to solve their problems.
Similar vein for like in terms of philosophy, I would say something that I mentioned earlier in one of my answers is think about your early career as this process of elimination or filtering. So, don't be very fixated on that ideal role and getting it from the get go, right? Like a lot of learning would happen, and would have to happen for you to get into a place where you feel really excited and happy. And I like having been in the industry, I can definitely say I don't think there's ever an end state where you are 100% satisfied with everything that you're doing. So it's more about getting your foot into the door, taking the opportunities as they come, making the most out of it, and then figuring out what you do not want or want, and then moving on to the next thing. Especially as international students, sometimes our options are limited, right? And that demotivates us, or it's sort of like it's not that great, and you often think about, oh, only if I didn't have this immigration constraint I would be working for this amazing startup versus whatever. Like, I know I've gone through that mindset, but having sort of navigated that for more than 5 years now, I would say that um, it always does work out for the best in the end, as cliche as it sounds. So even if you didn't get the ideal role or opportunity in the beginning that you thought was best for you, like, take what you get, make the most out of it, and then keep striving for that next thing, and the next best would keep coming. Perseverance and persistence has, like, they have no substitute. You have to put in the work, you have to grind, and nothing will come to you before it's time for you. So just keep at it. That's like more of a philosophical tip or advice.
I will say that I put here in the chat some resources, and I will put another one that I wish someone would. I've been researching for the best career research for the last 5 years, and I wish someone would have gave them to me. One of the best career advices I could give. Also, I love that I follow always the notes from Samya. Is focus your career on optimizing it by interesting. So if at the beginning you don't have the experience, for example, when I started my career, I knew that I love to convince people, and you see how I talk. I'm a person in my heart. So I took a sales role, and honestly, it was a US company. And at that point, my English was really bad. And I was calling CEOs, and they were telling me, "Oh, I don't understand you. Who is this?" And it was really bad. But I learned a lot about sales. I was very interested in sales. And then I was very interested in careers, and now I do careers and sales. I am getting on calls with HR directors, 100 in the next month. And I do a lot of sales so they can hire talent. So now imagine I'm interested in happiness. Does it mean I have to focus my career into happiness? No, maybe I'm okay just listening podcasts on happiness in the evenings. But my main interest right now is careers. I would be reading things about all of these, for example, right? So if I focus my career on my interests, it's very difficult to go wrong. So, for example, if some of you are interested in technology, product management, all of these kind of things, like dive in it, and try to see what are you really interested on. I shared a link to do a career test, which is one of the best for free. That you can check what jobs you are more happy, less happy, these kind of things, and your interests. But really, focus on optimizing by interesting. That is a sentence I would put on a t-shirt one day, and it's not from me. This comes from Dorie Clark, one of the top management thinkers in the world, in the book The Long Game, which is a game-changing book. So I will tell you, optimizing by interest in your career can really change your life. It's definitely changing mine. So that's my last thing I wanted to add on this.
This has been really great. We're getting a lot of awesome feedback in the chat. So thank you everyone for all of the perspectives you've shared, the insights, the like inside tips and tricks. As we shared, all this recording will be sent to everyone tomorrow. I'll also be posting it on LinkedIn today. I sent a link in the chat where I'll be posting it. If you found this event on LinkedIn, I'm going to edit that post to have the recording. So this recording will be sent with everyone as well as all the resources. And I encourage you all to connect and with all of our panelists here so you can continue to see more of their journey and learn some of their insights. They're tagged in that LinkedIn post that I shared. But thank you everyone for being here today. And I really hope that this has been really insightful for you all on your journeys.
Thank you, Jade, for organizing. Super panel.
Yeah, thank you, Jade. This was great.
Thank you.
Yes, Jay, this is super meaningful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And to everyone.
All right, bye everyone. Keep an eye out for all these resources and the links and recordings to be shared with you all. All right,
Bye,
bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.